No guesses yet to my joke in the chat. I'm curious if anyone in this session will be able to get it. All right.
I don't think I got the joke. I mean, I think I actually received it.
Oh, the joke right here. What did the calculator say to the pencil? I'll go over the answer in a second. But yeah, if anyone else, we got our first winner. Yes, the answer to the joke is you can count on me. I had to throw in a corny teacher joke on Valentine's Day. So thank you for participating and guessing. I'll go ahead and dive on in, and we may have some other folks joining throughout the session as well. But I'm Abby. I'll be leading us through our workshop today on empowering students, how to build a student-led PBIS system for a collaborative school culture. My colleague David is here as well. You may have received an email from him, some reminders. He'll be monitoring the chat, so feel free to put in any questions or a very collaborative environment, so feel free to come off mute as well and jump in the chat if you have anything to ask or share. But before diving in, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. I see some familiar faces here, but some new as well. I was a middle school math teacher for a handful of years. I taught 7th and 8th grade math. Do I have any math teachers in the room? I'm curious. Not seeing any hands. That's okay. I won't hold it.
I teach math.
Oh, Stephen, I didn't even see you. Yay.
Yeah.
We love the math teachers, but everyone else is welcome as well. But yeah, I taught 7th and 8th grade math. I was out in Hawaii actually, but I'm now in California. My school was a PBIS school, Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports. We were really focusing on building that empowering school environment where students were engaged, but we found it hard to build that consistency across classrooms and hard to build a system that was engaging for both our staff and our students. So that really led me diving into the topic that we'll be covering today on how to build a student-driven school culture. Ended up teaming up with a teacher friend to start a program called Class Equity. And we've grown to support over 100,000 students across 2,500 schools, building student responsibility and engagement. So I'm really excited to share all of that collective wisdom with you today from all of the schools that I've had the privilege of working with. We should have a special guest joining us in a little bit as well from one of our schools to share her tips and tricks. So excited to have her join as well. And in my free time, you can find me surfing, reading. I love a good mystery book, and I love pizza as well. I just found out that Friday was National Pizza Day and I missed it, so I will have to be celebrating this week for sure. I know we only have a quick 30 minutes together, so the game plan, I really want you to be able to walk away with actionable and tangible strategies to involve student voices into your expectations in order to foster that sense of community and shared purpose, how to delegate responsibility and leadership so that you can create a student-driven, self-sustaining PBIS system, and strategies to create continual feedback loops with your students so you can involve their voices throughout the year. I know that I am mentioning PBIS. These strategies are for any type of school. So if your school does not have PBIS frameworks, you are absolutely welcome in this conversation as well. These are very applicable for any school environment that wants to create that student-driven culture. I'm going to start with a quick reflection on a scale of 1 to 5. How involved are your students currently in the decision-making process at your school? Scale of 1 to 5. You can show me on your hands. Seeing some 2s, some 3s, some 1s, 2s. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully today we'll be able to give you some strategies to bump that up to a 3 or a 4. But if you have any other tips as well that you have seen work at your school or others, you're always welcome to throw those in the chat. So to dive in, the first common mistake that I see when schools are starting off with PBIS or trying to build this school-wide economy is that the planning is done in silos. You'll have the teacher planning committee over the summer, come up with your school values. Maybe you have a school acronym. I know our PBIS schools love those acronyms. And then day one, you'll just expect your students to follow these rules. Well, what that creates is this I am the teacher, do as I say mentality, which isn't very engaging for students. Or you may have some of those teachers that maybe don't enforce those expectations. Students know that they can get away with certain things. Then they'll go to the enforcer and say, well, so-and-so lets me use my phone in class. So there's just no accountability for the students or for the teachers. So a strategy, bring student voices into the conversation. Co-create the school-wide expectations and values and routines in order to build student buy-in, accountability, and shared purpose across both your staff and your students. How to actually do this, my favorite tactic is the classroom contract activity. I'm shouting out Bunnell Elementary here. They do an awesome job at co-creating these expectations with their students and then upholding them throughout the year. I have a lesson plan linked here, so I'll share this after so you have those resources. But the gist of it basically is brainstorming with your students. What do these values look like in action? What does it look like to build strong relationships or to show respect? What does it look like to be an engaged learner, to have a collaborative school environment? What does that sound like? What does it feel like? You can ask them other questions like, why is school important? Have them finish a sentence. School is important because, or what will you need to do in order to be successful this year? By grounding in that with your students, then they can help come up with the ideas to make that successful school environment. They already know that when they're on their phone, they're not being an engaged learner. So by having these conversations, they can be the ones saying, to be successful, I probably shouldn't be on my phone. That should be an expectation at my school. Now, when your students are coming up with it, it's so much easier to hold them accountable, and students will hold each other accountable as well, and they'll see the purpose and the value in it. On to holding students accountable. Next big tip, make sure that you're constantly referring back to this throughout the year. It's not an activity you just do the first week and forget about it. Have those expectations and values up throughout the year, and then use that positive reinforcement to reinforce these values. Whether your school is doing paper school bucks or some sort of points-based system, or maybe you're using something like class equity, that's how you can really engage students and uphold them throughout the year. One important thing to note is to be really clear with your staff on those non-negotiables and the why behind them. So planning can go a long way here. You can still have that conversation with your staff, but then help open that conversation up to your students as well. What are your policies around phones, around hoods, around headphones? And if students push back, have that conversation about why that is a policy at your school. Because if you can't answer why, then it probably shouldn't be on that list. All right, and one more thing on this note, the outcome, it's really cool to see the impact from this one middle school principal shared. When students have a say in building the school culture, they are more engaged, they hold each other accountable to our school values and expectations, and they even hold teachers accountable as well. That consistency is a huge game changer. We're a community instead of a collection of classrooms. On that note, I'm going to pause really fast. Feel free to type in any questions into the chat, or if you have any questions, feel free to come off mute, but I'll give a minute to kind of let that sink in and see if there are any questions yet. I'll have you write in the chat, what was the first job that you ever had? And in one word, how did having that job make you feel? I was a camp counselor back in high school, and it was just so much fun. I remember that was my first reaction to having a job. It's like, this can be a really fun thing to do. Oops. Restaurant host, it made me feel independent. Babysitting made you feel responsible. Grocery store stocker. First step to being my own person. That's a really great perspective. Another camp counselor, amazing. The $5 payment a week was awesome. Yes, it felt so empowering to finally have my own money. Awesome, awesome. Cleaning houses, waiter at a restaurant. Made me feel tired. Yeah, definitely a little bit of tiredness. David, paint manufacturer, dizzy from all the chemicals. But overall theme here, I'm really hearing kind of that sense of empowerment. You're feeling like an adult. It feels good to have that responsibility. We'll come back to all of these feelings in a minute. But jumping into another common mistake that I've seen when schools are creating these PBIS systems, they say, great, we have our expectations and values, but then teachers see it as just one more thing to do. So teachers lose steam. They're not really keeping up with it. It just leads to burnout because teachers already have so much on their plates. We all know unengaged teachers then leads to unengaged students. And again, the system kind of just crumbles from there. So a strategy is to hand that responsibility over to your students with classroom and school jobs. Yes, even your older students. I taught middle school, and I thought when I was in the classroom, I thought jobs were maybe a little elementary, so I didn't really use them. But as I've grown to work with more and more secondary students, we found that as students get older, they really crave that responsibility and that leadership. So we should be giving them more of it, right? Just like we felt empowered when we had that job, so do students. So I love to point out this is a job mob board from an 8th grade classroom. The teacher shared that her students' favorite jobs are the personal assistant and the cleanup crew. She was like, I've never seen students so excited to wipe down tables. And this is Adam Jester. He teaches high school. I'm going to play this quick video of some of his favorite classroom jobs that he uses with his students.
So this year I have really tried to hand over as many of the responsibilities over to my students as possible. As many of you know, you can assign jobs in class equity. With that, you can decide how much they get paid and everything. But for my students, it has really, other than setting prices and putting new students into the system, for the most part, my students can handle everything. So for example, I have store operators who come in, fill all the orders right before our high school goes to lunch. And I have a cart that they push everything out into their classrooms and deliver those. I have bankers I have a deposit box kind of outside my room that students can drop their deposit slips with their SMART goals attached to it in order for my bankers to open that up and start doing deposits after lunch. That is specifically, I make sure that they don't receive those deposits until after our store is already closed. That way, I'm kind of incorporating that into our personal finance lesson. So I tell them, if you were to go to the bank right now and deposit a check, in most places, you're not going to have access to that until the next day. Same goes for us here for our classroom economy. I also have cleanup crews. So I have students that help clean up my room every day. We have office aides, and we actually operate a newsletter. And my students have just recently taken that over. They do a video, kind of a vlog sort of thing. And so they do that, and those students get paid extra for that as well.
All right. Adam then goes into sharing some of his favorite store reward ideas. So I highly recommend checking out the rest of the video if you're interested in hearing that. Again, I'll share these slides afterwards. But we're going to jump into some of my favorite ways to have your students run your school store. I mentioned that we have a special guest, Brenda from Veterans Memorial Family School. They do an incredible job at having a completely student-led economy. Every aspect of it is student-led. So I'll quickly go through some of their jobs and then bring Brenda into the conversation if anyone has any questions for her. But for their school store, Students will make purchases online, and then they have their warehouse and packaging team that reviews all of the orders. They'll put all of the different items into those individual packages, label them with the student names, hand them off to the delivery team. That team then takes the orders and brings them to students in the cafeteria during lunch. They have a store manager that oversees all of the inventory, lets the teachers know if anything is running low. And this student also is responsible for hiring and managing and training the other employees in their school store. So again, teachers are super hands-off. They even have a marketing team, a communications team, which is responsible for talking with the student body, surveying what types of rewards the students want. They even create posters and slides to display what items are available for purchase. And then they help build excitement around those larger rewards, such as the end of quarter dance or whatever that reward might be. So a really cool way to, again, just hand over every aspect of that store to the students. And these are middle schoolers. It's really cool to see them rise to the occasion. We have Brenda here, our special guest, so I'd love to have her jump in and share, are there any other insights or tips that you want to share about having your students run the school store?
Yeah, so we also have a supervisor who's kind of in charge of the hiring and firing process. Tomorrow she's going to be leading training because we have originally I think it was 4, but during lunch I had some more kids ask if they can work in the store. So I think it's about 6 now that are going to join our team because we have so many orders that it's just so many orders coming in. So tomorrow she'll be leading the training. She'll show them how to do expenses, how to send paychecks, and then she'll show them kind of the packaging process so that wherever they're put in whatever job they get, that they'll be able to pick up and just go running with it.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, what has the impact been of handing over all those responsibilities to your students?
Well, I always tell the kids, I'm just here to watch you guys. My supervisor is in charge of everything. She has her assistant manager, she has her general manager, and they are basically in charge of everything. They let me know when we're out of stock of certain items. They're the ones who send the paychecks. They're the ones who are telling me, like, listen, I have to fire so-and-so because they're not doing their job. So it's really, all I'm doing is sitting here. People say, oh, you lose your lunch because you're giving up your lunch. I don't lose my lunch. I still have my lunch because I'm not doing anything. I'm just in the room watching the kids to make sure they're safe. But other than that, my supervisor, she is 100% on top of everything. I can literally go on vacation tomorrow and she'll handle everything. They know how to lock up. They know how to organize everything. They know how to price things. Yeah, they handle it within themselves. They communicate. If you come in here, it looks like an actual store. So.
Oh, I love it. And I'm jumping into one other job that I love that you all have. So I'll pull you back in to answer another question in a minute. Oh, here are some cool pictures from their school store. I even had a show. They have these employee wristbands and students wear them around. I think they even have like walkie-talkies to talk with each other. So it is just super, super cool what students can come up with when given that responsibility. And I love these cool employee badges as well, makes them feel official. Some other jobs that they have at Veterans Memorial, they have students even run the positive reinforcement at their school. So now teachers don't even have to do that. I think y'all call them agents, but other schools call them positivity patrol, or maybe sometimes the banker. But these are students throughout class that will be on the lookout for, students who are displaying those school values or going above and beyond. And they'll be the ones actually giving out the bonuses. So now teachers really are just teaching. They don't have to worry about anything else. The responsibility is handed over to the students. Brenda, I love the story you shared earlier today of when you were out with the sub. Would you mind sharing that with the group today?
Oh yeah, so I was out for a few days and I sent a quick message in Google Classroom kind of letting the kids know, like, hey, I'm going to be out for a few days. Everyone's in charge. You guys know what you're doing. I had some kids that will send me messages like, it's not fair. So-and-so took this much money from me. And I'm like, you know that when I'm not there, they're in charge. So once I'm not here, they already know who has their job, who has their teacher accounts. And if they see them doing something they're not supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter if it's in my class or if it's in another class, they'll send the fine, and they know that when I'm not here, that person is in charge. Even right now, I'm using class equity. I have an agent who is in charge of monitoring the kids that are on task and the ones that are off task. And you can't hear anyone talking because they want their money.
I love it. Yep. Students are the ones helping keep everyone accountable. Very, very cool. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep on going. A few other fun school ideas that they have here. So again, I'll share these templates out with you all after so that you have all of Veteran Memorial Family Schools awesome ideas. But one important thing that I want to note is this definitely requires trust. You need to be willing to hand that responsibility over to your students. And if in any case students do abuse the power, you can have those open conversations with them about what integrity and responsibility look like. It's such a good teaching moment to have that in a safe space in the school environment than maybe when they get into the real world. So just want to leave you with students will rise to the occasion if they're trusted with that responsibility. And then this quote I love from a 7th grade student: having a job makes school better and more interesting. I have more responsibilities. It's fun. I have control over how I spend my time. And I know that I'm helping my teachers and playing an important role, really helping with that sense of belonging and community building. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to keep cruising, but we hopefully will have a few minutes at the end for Q&A. Again, feel free to throw any questions in the chat. But last reflection on a scale of thumbs up, thumbs down, how often do you reflect and revise school culture initiatives? Thumbs up, all the time, continually making improvements. Sometimes there might be a committee, never. Beginning of the year, never talk about it again. I'm seeing some like middle to nothing. I'm seeing one thumb up, that's awesome. Middle, awesome. Kind of seeing the spectrum here. This is one of the last common mistakes that I see. Once the system is set up and running, it just stops there and improvements aren't being made. Data is reviewed by the teacher committee. They don't bring the students into the conversation. Hopefully you are seeing the theme now throughout my common mistake slides. But the consequence there's just a gap in communication between students and staff. Strategy, surprise, surprise, bring your students into the conversation. Share the data and challenges with them and listen to their ideas of how to improve school culture together. They generally know best. So a tactic with this, create a student PBIS or leadership team. Have a diverse group of representatives across grade levels, genders, friend groups, and have a monthly meeting. You can discuss topics such as disciplinary challenges and solutions, the status of your school values and expectations, any tweaks that need to be made to your economy system, how to help engage the unengaged students, or maybe even the unengaged teachers. Students can really help out with that, and other ideas and rewards for school events. One example I want to point out, I was chatting with one school that was really seeing an uptick in disruptive behaviors, specifically at lunch. The teaching committee met, they tried to change different lunch periods, they tried to add more staff members to the lunchroom, nothing was working. They brought their students into the conversation and asked them what's going on, and the student said, we're just bored, we need something to do during lunch. So collectively, the students and the teachers came up with different activities that the students could choose from during lunch, such as cornhole shown here. And guess what happened? The disruptive behaviors went down. So again, bring your students into the conversation. They have some really great ideas to the challenges that schools are facing. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip this, but again, I'll share out the slides, just some do's and don'ts for reminders of creating these the student-led committees. But then the outcome from this 5th grade student, it's cool to have a say in what happens at our school and to help make it a better place for everyone. It feels good to be involved and know that I can make a difference. All right, we have a few minutes left. I wanted to open it up to Q&A, either for me or for Brenda. What question's going to help dig into?
Just because of the level we're at, is there any way to have it so that students can buy and sell from one another?
Oh, that's a great question. So have students like put different rewards into the school store? So
well, there's that, but like if they're doing, I know one of our other teachers in our school had something going on where students were creating things and then selling them to other students, and I'm not sure what economy they were using. It was before we had class equity involvement at the school at all. But I was wondering if there was a way that like that could be facilitated. Like if student A had something they wanted to sell, could they sell it through class equity?
Good question. So not directly in the platform, but there's some different workarounds. If you're using like paper money as well, students can pay each other with paper money, or you can do some
Yeah.
workaround where you can kind of transfer the money around. But yeah, I'm happy to dig into that later and show you some workarounds there. Good question.
Thank-
While we have Brenda on the call as well, I'm gonna put her on the spot and ask her one question. What tips do you have for schools that are hoping to build this student-led economy, but they haven't started yet?
You definitely want students to join the conversation. Like my first year, we started with asking the kids, you know, what do you think should be some bonuses? What do you think should be some fines? And what do you think the prices should be? And it kind of started leading that conversation. And once they set the rules and they knew what was expected, they couldn't like double back, like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be wearing this. They'd be like, oh, well, you're wearing this, so that's a $500 fine for you. So they hold each other accountable. But yeah, once you invite them into the conversation and give them that responsibility, they'll take it running, and then it's less work on the teacher. And then for Stephen, we actually had students last year who made bracelets, and we would buy them from her using class equity dollars that she would exchange for art supplies that she loved, and then we would resell them to kids, and we'd have them have custom bracelets. So
Cool.
that's also something else you could try.
That is an awesome idea. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know we're at time, so just kind of building on a little bit. Tips for getting started, as Brenda mentioned, kind of this idea of starting small. Their economy, they've been doing this for 3 years, so it's really evolved throughout the process. So don't feel like you're just going to start one day and have it all down packed. Start small and build in and just continually tweak and improve it. We're here to help. Other teachers are here to help as well. So lean on us if you have any questions. But your quick exit ticket for today before hopping off, if you could go ahead and write in the chat, what is one takeaway that you have from today's session? Occupancy and jobs for secondary classrooms, student involvement, create that student-led PBIS team, turning over responsibility to your students to increase buy-in and decrease your workload. Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. Can't build that collaborative school culture if students aren't at the meeting. I love it. Giving students more responsibility. Amazing. Thank you so much all for joining. Hopefully you've walked away with some tactical strategies you can take back to your school. Again, I'll share these slides and some resources with you. But if any other questions come up, again, I'm always available to chat. Feel free to shoot me an email at abby@classequity.com. And yeah, excited to continue brainstorming and building strong school cultures together. Thanks y'all for joining.